So I'm sure you're all aware of the brand new HBO Max series titled Velma, which is like a spin on the Scooby-Doo franchise. In fact, I'm willing to bet that most of you have only heard of this series because of the bad press that it's been receiving online. Some of you might have seen the show and are already purchasing coffins and saying goodbye to your loved ones because you feel as if you're going to pass away due to being exposed to the bad writing. But there's probably some of you out there who have never seen this show and have only heard rumors of it being bad and want me, your favorite YouTuber, Zero Reasons to Go On, to elaborate on the show and talk about the bad and the bad. It's all bad. Maybe a little sliver of good, but it's mostly bad. Well, without further ado, here are my thoughts on the totally wonderful Velma series that has zero problems with it. Spoiler warning before we begin. Who am I kidding? None of you are gonna watch the show. Velma is an adult animated series which focuses on Velma Dinkley trying to solve the missing case of her mother's disappearance along with discovering who is responsible for murdering girls from her high school and stealing their brains. That's the basic plot summary of the series. It doesn't sound like a terrible story on paper, but when developed into a show for a streaming platform and created by people who have no idea how to write, it loses all hope. Personally, Velma to me feels like a show that was designed to be something completely different until either Warner Bros. Discovery or some other person or group stepped in and told the creators, hey, the IP that you're currently working on will not sell, so let's turn all these characters you created into Scooby-Doo characters to add some familiarity. Now, normally, I am all for creators changing up formulas of existing properties to bring something new and unique to the table. The biggest example of a franchise reboot or reimagining that I personally enjoy, that I can give you guys, is when Infinity Ward rebooted the Modern Warfare franchise. You know, growing up, I played the bejesus out of the original Modern Warfare trilogy, and although I was skeptical about how the current IW staff would treat this glorious sub-series of Call of Duty, campaign-wise, they did a great job in my opinion. In fact, I like the new Modern Warfare story more than the original simply because the developers managed to give each original character a more fleshed out story and personality, which is something that was lacking in the original games. But let's not talk about the current state of Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer though. Completely ignore that. However, not all reboots or reimagined versions of pre-existing properties succeed, or finger paint, or whatever. So when I first heard of Velma's existence, I thought it was going to be something worth watching. Of course I was skeptical, but I kept my hopes up because I like to be optimistic sometimes. But after spending months reading negative articles, watching cringy trailers, reviews, and unfortunately spending an hour watching the first 2 episodes of the show the other day, all I could say is, Jesus Christ, why? Why? There's just so much that I dislike and very little that I enjoy about Velma. Now, before I begin with my complaints, I just want to state that I don't believe Velma is the worst series on the planet. But just like some of my friends, this show has a lot of problems, but I do believe that my complaints are pretty easy to fix if the creators of the series decide to take fan feedback. So, look, I'm going to gently rip this series a new asshole, but understand that I'm not doing it because I think it deserves it. I'm doing it because it's genuinely not a great show, it's not enjoyable to watch, and it needs some help and love. A love that can only be given by ripping it a new asshole. One thing I noticed right off the bat is that hardcore Scooby-Doo fans online were pretty much upset about the characters changing races, which I personally don't really care about. Warner owns the characters, they could do whatever they want with them, and to be honest, this is like the least of my concerns. I really don't care about this part. But I do believe that the show would have went over a little bit better with people if they just made this an original IP instead of trying to put this much of a spin on the already existing Scooby-Doo franchise. Also, Scooby isn't in the show. I know that complaint is very common amongst people who don't like Velma, and it's quite a redundant statement, but I just don't understand how this series can feature reimagined Scooby-Doo characters, but not the biggest star of the actual IP. Maybe it's for the best though. Could you imagine if these people reimagined Scooby for this series? They'd probably turn him into a fucking chihuahua or something. Other changes to the characters include personality tweaks, which are bad. Norville, for example, is a giant simp for Velma. Fred is mentally a child and is also a psychopath. Daphne is just a giant cunt, and Velma is also a giant cunt. I don't like any of these people. I think the only tolerable character on the show is Norville. Everyone else I just do not like. I feel like everyone in this series is just a giant asshole and is not relatable. But maybe that's what the writers were going for, and if that's the case, then Great job, guys. I don't like Velma at all. She's mean, judgmental, and I'm surprised people even interact with her at all in this show. In terms of jokes, 90% of them suck. I think I laughed at like 2 or 3 jokes from the first 2 available episodes, and that's not good, because the entire show tries to tell a joke every 2 seconds. A show filled with jokes, witty remarks, and pop culture references shoved into every single sentence, and I can't even laugh at a majority of them. I honestly cannot tell who this show was supposed to be made for, but if I don't find the humor funny, then either the show wasn't made for me, my sense of humor is garbage, or the joke writers need to stop writing jokes. I'm really not too big on the animation either, but it's not completely awful. I said this before in my Smiling Friends review, and I'll say it again. A lot of modern adult animated shows just all look the same and blend together for me, and with Velma, there are points where I feel like I've seen this type of animated show before, but occasionally, there are moments where I'm like, okay, this looks pretty awesome. I love the detail in this scene. A prime example of some cool scenes I enjoyed are the ones where Velma hallucinates. The detail in those scenes are pretty cool looking in my opinion. I also don't really care about the locker scene in the beginning of episode 1 where it shows a bunch of high school girls naked and fighting. Yeah, it's only a cartoon, but I still think it's pretty creepy, and I think it's kind of stupid that the writers tried to make Daphne play this entire scene off by stating some random statistic that pilot episodes of TV shows display more sex and nudity than the rest of the entire series. I'm gonna go see if I can find a source for that. What a pretty self-aware moment. Oh, speaking of meta jokes, they recite these self-aware jokes multiple times in the show, and you know, meta jokes are clever once in a while, but it feels like the writers were trying to play a game to see how many meta jokes they could shove into 25 minutes. Besides those complaints, I really don't think the show is bad. It's definitely not great. In fact, it might be awful, terrible, complete dog shit. But I think I've seen worse. Remember everybody, there's a movie out there about a bunch of cats. Velma kinda sticks out from the top of the trash can for me. I see it, it's there, it's existing, and it can totally get picked out from the trash and get cleaned up before it sinks further into the filth. But that's totally up to the owners, and to be honest, if I owned this TV show, I wouldn't even bother touching it again. Do I see Velma going anywhere? Specifically, do I see it getting a season 2? Originally, no. I saw this show getting canned immediately. However, because of people like me bitching and complaining about the show and bringing it to everyone's attention, basically giving it free promotion, Warner Bros. Will see the viewer count rise. Unless they're against the idea of bad press equals good press, they'll probably greenlight a season 2. As much as I've enjoyed clowning on this terrible show, I think Velma has a chance to improve itself over time if it doesn't get canned after this season, and if the rest of this season just sucks in general. Judging by the first 2 episodes, I feel like the rest of them are going to be worse. Velma needs to slow down with the quantity of jokes and focus more on the quality of them. Same with the writing. Make some of the characters a bit more likable and relatable, like Velma. If she's the star of the show, then maybe she should be the most likable and relatable since we see her on screen most of the time. And if the writers won't make her nicer and relatable, then at least make her funnier. And I think in order to just shut up everybody else, Norville should just adopt a dog. But not a Chihuahua. Do not change Scooby's breed, I swear to God. And maybe chill with the meta jokes too. Maybe less shower scenes as well. Everything else about the show's alright. Just literally fix the writing, and this might be a banger of a show. Those are really my only thoughts on Velma. Honestly, whether you watch Velma or not is up to you. Personally, I think you guys should check out Be Cool Scooby-Doo, which I believe is also on HBO Max. It's a Scooby-Doo series that aired on Cartoon Network way back in 2015 and I believe concluded around 2018. The show features some redesigned Mystery Inc. characters, and let me tell you, the redesigns may look funky, but the show is pretty good. Or you could watch any other previous incarnation of Scooby-Doo prior to Velma, or you could check out that new Scooby-Doo movie Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, which came out back in October. I heard that was alright. But if you dare to watch Velma, may the universe have mercy on your soul. But that's today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed me ripping apart Velma. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new around here. Click the bell icon to be notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. Follow me on all of my social links and join my Discord server. Links in the bio below. Have a great day, everyone. And remember that Velma needs some help.